Today, we have Julian Hayes II. He is a founder of the Art of Fitness Life. He helps business leaders and entrepreneurs optimize their health and energy for personal, professional performance with precision and leveraging their genetics. Now, I ain't no Wolverine, but I wouldn't mind getting some better understanding of my genetic code. So welcome to the show, Julian Hayes, to the Whole Person Podcast, man. How the heck are you?
I love that intro, Evan. Thank you so much, man. I am excited, ecstatic to be here. I'm pumped up now. You got me pumped up with it. It's like playing basketball again, and you're running out of the tunnel with the music. So I'm ready to go, man. Happy to be here.
That is hysterical. You want to know why?
Once again, I am Hans. I am Franz, and we are here to pump you up.
All right. So you and I are going to pump each other up, and hopefully we are going to pump up our listeners today. Well, let me ask you, you were a med student who had a pretty great career ahead of you, and then you're like, nah, I'm done with that. I'm going to pursue helping people get healthier and understanding how to not change their genetic code, but understanding their genetic makeup to perform better. How badly did your parents just not like you for a few days?
I think the whole world was just confused. And here's the thing. So no one in my family is an entrepreneur. Secondly, no one in my family has come remotely close to medical school. I'm first generation. So it was cool to graduate undergrad. That's great. But then it's even more, I'm like the golden child. Like if we had an approval rating and we took stock of that, right. I'm at an all-time high. Once I get accepted, I'm in New York with medical school. I'm at an all-time high. I can do no wrong. I'm already an only child, so I was spoiled a little bit, but it's gone up. Aunts, uncles, everyone loves me. But in New York, I just had all these moments. And I think before, even when I was in New York, I always had these voices, and it's hard to describe this. If I tell people I had these voices like, "Oh, are you a little crazy or something?" I was like, no, but I just had this gut feeling that there was something out there. And something was missing. And as I was doing that, I met people in New York. And when I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and New York is quite different from Nashville, Tennessee. And so up there, I'm not crazy. I'm just another regular dude, because people in New York there's a lot of quote unquote crazy people up there. Sorry for people from New York, but it's the truth. It's quite different. I love New York. It changed my life, but it is what it is. As I'm in New York, I'm talking to people who are combining a job that they love, but also with their passion. And my mind is blown. I'm like, wow, you can do that. And through the signs of the universe, law of attraction, your reticular activating system, whatever you want to call it, I started noticing more that there were people in health and fitness that were doing what I wanted to do. And so I couldn't shake this. And I'm taking exams, like 3-hour-long exams, and I'm sitting halfway. I'm looking up. I'm not even nervous because I'm like, I don't even think I want to be here. All my classmates are just looking around. They're nervous, stressing out about the answers and stuff. I'm just like, oh my goodness, what have I got myself into? So I have no choice, because I didn't want to be the guy that's like 60 and 70 talking to kids like, back in 2013, I forgot what year it was, that I should have did this and that. I don't want to be that guy. Regret's a terrible poison. It's the worst feeling ever. So I had to do it. So I came home. I tell anyone, hey, I'm not going to go back to school. I'm going to be a writer. A writer? What? You never told anyone that you like to write. Yeah, I know. I just kind of lived vicariously through other people and kept it quiet. Oh, I'm going to start training people too. What? Really? Where does this come from? Are you drugged? Do you need to go do a drug test? I was like, no. So that's how that ended. Over time, it started to subside a little bit when it's like, okay, maybe he knows what he's doing a little bit, especially when I started to get published in different publications. There was like, oh, okay, maybe he knows what he's doing. But let me tell you, for a while, my approval rating was probably like low 20%. So that's it in a nutshell.
Golden child to, I'm trying to think of something snazzy and I can't come up with it.
Rotten child.
I don't know. Golden child to meh.
Yeah. Meh. Yeah. I was going to say that. But, and I think it's just because like this online world, when you say you work from the internet, like where's your place of business? Well, technically it's on the internet. I exist on the internet. And it's just hard for the previous generation to understand that. So I totally get it. If you come from a blue collar background like I did, and then you get this opportunity that's quote unquote a guarantee, why would you give up something good? But me, I'm like, I want to give up something good because there's something potential great out there.
Yeah.
But my previous generation and my background, my family, we value security first and foremost. I don't value that. I value adventure and potential first and foremost.
Yeah. The older generations of adventure was traveling the world through world wars.
Exactly.
And so to have security, like it is completely a generational shift. Speaking of generational shifts, there's been a lot of shifting and understanding about health and fitness. So why is epigenetics important to our understanding and how we develop the way we view our health?
Mm-hmm. I think first, you
got to tell me what epigenetics is.
Okay. So a simple definition is epigenetics it's above the gene. So it's just above your genome. And that's a simple definition for it. And basically what the difference is when you hear epigenetics and genetics is that genetics is the code that's in us that cannot change. But epigenetics is a way of being able to turn on and off certain particular genes in our body by how we react throughout the environment. When I say environment, the environment is also like the food you put in your body, you're exercising, you're sleeping, the way you talk to yourself, your thoughts. And so it's everything is input to your system. And that's communicating with your system to either turn on and off genes. Some of these genes are more favorable. Some of these genes are not as favorable. But even to take off the science side of it, I look at it from a practical standpoint. I grew up in an environment where I thought once you get to 30 years old, it's all downhill from there. That's it. And now you're just like waiting your turn until it's time to go. That's literally what I thought. So to me, the beauty of epigenetics is that we have more power than we initially thought to change and to really make something of our health. And so I say that because for my family, for example, and this is how I first got involved in this, I noticed that my family had a lot of the similar issues, and I went back a couple of generations. And then I did some digging with other friends' family, and they had a particular set of certain issues. And I didn't believe in just coincidences. And so what I learned is that certain genes give us a higher propensity for certain issues to come about. So for example, I have genes that give me a higher propensity for more blood sugar problems. Some people like to call this diabetes. I just call it blood sugar problems. And I don't have as much of an issue or a higher propensity for something as like cognitive issues, but other families might. And so what that does on a practical standpoint then is I can tailor my diet, my whole regimen for my particular set of genes. So I'm able to get much more precise with my recommendations, because that's the world that we're heading in now. Because we hear a lot about diets, do this diet, do that diet, do this diet, but it's not N of one. So we're 99.9% the same, but that 0.1% is a huge difference. And that's where this piece comes into the puzzle.
So imagine me, this guy who doesn't understand much about health and fitness. And there's these ideas of, well, this is what it takes to get healthy.
But I can run like the wind blows.
And a lot of people think, okay, well, I'm just going to go do cardio. I, on the other hand, am in a position not to do cardio because of just different injuries. And so I have to figure out different ways of exercising that helps. So how do I go about understanding my genetic makeup so that I can also hack that, I guess, okay, coach me. Let's just do that. You coach me right now on by asking me questions on what I need to do. That way we can give an example and it helps bring in understanding.
Okay, so the first part of that is, how would you know? Well, obviously you would want to get your genetics ran so you can get your blueprint, and then by your genes, then you can go by that and you can start getting coached off of that.
So how do you do that? Because I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, you just order. You can just order. Usually, so there's two ways. There's companies that people are probably familiar with, like a 23andMe, where you can just order it and it be sent to you. Then there's people like myself, where we order it for you, and then we sit down with you to explain it all. And the reason why I mentioned both of them is because I don't want to have any biases.
Right.
So and the reason why I say that is because I do not allow just direct to consumer, to where you get a test and you go off on your own. I have to sit down and read it with you to explain what all this stuff means. And the reason why is because just because you have a particular gene doesn't mean that it's going to be expressing in your life right now. So sometimes people take this stuff as just an absolute, and they see, oh my goodness, I have this gene. This means that I'm going to get this. And so they're going to change, and they might not necessarily have to do that. So that's why we had to take a whole view of their whole lifestyle.
So you're saying a DNA test in the realms of finding out like your heritage and where you're from, not specifically like, hey, these are your specific genomes and this is how it breaks down and what it means.
Oh, so that's the thing. I'm glad you brought that up. So when you're doing, So I'm glad you brought that up. No, so I don't look at really where you come from or anything. That's more. It's a little relevant, but not really that relevant. And so that's more entertainment. So every SNP, which is what we call them, it's directly related to your lifestyle. Can we improve that through some type of lifestyle change in your life? So that's also a big difference that will be between a commercial and more like a health professional who uses like a private lab instead of just like a mass consumer. So that's a big difference as well, is that you're going to get a lot more data with someone on the private spectrum.
Gotcha. Okay. What would be, let's say someone doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because they're not going to pay the money to go out and do the DNA tests.
Mm-hmm.
What would be a starting point for someone to learn about themselves in general so that they could become healthier?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because that can be a little overwhelming. Kind of like the capabilities that all I can do, it can kind of be overwhelming. It's like drinking from a fire hose. So I'm glad you asked that. The very first thing that I recommend anyone to do is to sit down and paint a portrait of what optimal health looks like to you. What does it feel like? What are you doing? What does good health look like to you? And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times when we look at healthy people, quote unquote healthy people, usually it's some type of athlete. And optimal health has a wide spectrum. Not everyone needs, like for myself, for example, I probably work out like 2 hours a day. I'm training for a marathon in addition to lifting weights all the time. You don't have to do that to be quote unquote healthy. And you don't have to have super low body fat to be healthy. So this is why even when I sit down with someone, the first thing is to really dial in, what does good health look like to you? How do you want to feel and move? Then you're going to work towards something that you actually want to do. Because the worst thing is to pick a destination out and get there, and it's the thing that you don't even really want.
Yeah. So let's say I wanted to look like Chris Pratt.
Okay.
Let's look him as my destination.
Chris Pratt, the Guardians movie, or pre-Chris Pratt before?
I already looked like the before. Ironically, like I joke about this, but him and I have a very similar body type.
Mm-hmm.
In general. Like, it's crazy, except he's taller than I am, I'm pretty sure. But other than that, like our dimensions are very, very similar. And so if I want to look like the new Chris Pratt, what would be my starting point?
Mm-hmm. It's looking at just the fundamentals. So let's start with sleep. How are you sleeping?
Terrible.
Okay. So we're going to start with sleeping because it doesn't matter how hard you're exercising. It's all, I'm not going to say it's all nil if you're not sleeping well, but sleeping is where you're growing, because throughout the day you're tearing your body down. But when you're sleeping, you're repairing yourself and you're helping yourself to rebuild, to become stronger for the next day. And you're also helping a lot of hormones keep themselves in the right balance. So the first area that I would look into is your rest and recovery. That's the very first step. So let's say that you got that dialed away. So now let's look at your nutrition. So how do you think your nutrition is?
Terrible.
Okay. What's terrible?
I'm eating Chinese food after this.
Okay.
We do eat out probably way more than we should. I do like vegetables, and I do like, I think we just don't plan well. And because we don't plan well, we go for what's easy, convenient, and unhealthy.
Okay. So, I mean, that would be like planning and structure and routines. I was going to eventually get around to that after, looking at those, like your sleep, your movement, movement, task, exercise, and your nutrition. So then I was going to say, okay, how's your structure? Because that's usually a big reason why, especially for people that are super busy. It's planning and structure. That's their downfall. But so let's go back to nutrition. So let's say it's someone who does have terrible, as you said, nutrition. What do you do? Well, I tell you what not to do. And that's to go cold turkey. Very few people can go absolutely cold turkey, from eating Chinese food to all of a sudden juicing, drinking smoothies, eating chicken with broccoli and rice. Very few people can do that cold turkey. So that's the last thing I would recommend for a guy like you. The first thing I would say is, what's one small habit that we can start doing? I would look at the start of your day. How are you starting the day? I generally like to look at the beginning of the day and the end of the day. And those are like your bookends of the day. So let's start at your beginning of your day. How does your breakfast look? How do you get into your day?
So either I don't eat breakfast.
Okay.
Until I'd have like a late breakfast, maybe like 10:30, 11. Or I will have, whatever cereal we have on hand with my kids, or I will have oatmeal or a yogurt. Something.
Okay. So not too bad. So I would focus on breakfast. Let's build you a solid breakfast. That will be the first area that I will look into. I would let the rest of the day do whatever you want the rest of the day. I would focus on that. Once you get that habit down, then I would move on to the next meal and work on that. And then I will work on the next one. So I'm slowly rebuilding your nutritional habits up. Every time I'm taking away a habit, I'm making sure to have a habit to directly fill into that habit. Because when you have an empty habit, generally that doesn't end too well. And I forgot what book it was, but I think it was The Power of Habit. I think that's where I read that about habits. But
Tom Ziegler, the son of Zig Ziglar, says the quickest way to success is to exchange a bad habit for a good habit. And that's essentially what you're doing. And what I like that you're saying is, when I've approached the situation before, I've approached, all right, I need to change my lunch, my dinner, and my breakfast. And then I try to plan for all three, but because I don't have systems in place, it's very overwhelming.
Yes.
And so I really I haven't thought about what, let's just start with the breakfast. Let's do that right. And then, let's take on the lunch. And then, so I really like the idea of just starting with one meal that you can, that's good.
Yeah, it's because there's a book that really changed my life and really changed my thinking on this. And through learning, working with people, I actually learned just that, hey, the major overhaul, that's people do it maybe for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But how are they doing 3 months down the line? and they're falling off, or it's harder to be consistent, or eventually you start to have this battle between your fitness, your health, and like your business life and your personal life, and they all start to clash. So how can we get all these things to work together?
Sorry, go ahead.
Which one? Oh, the Slight Edge.
The Slight Edge. Okay.
Yeah, Jeff Olson, The Slight Edge. And so that whole book is about doing very, very small, simple things each day. So simple that it doesn't feel like you're doing anything. And, you know, I'm rereading it again now. And there's a line that I really love. And he said that results are invisible at the beginning. And that's a key thing. So you're going to be doing these small habits. So say you're changing your breakfast, just changing your breakfast, focusing on that. You might not notice a whole lot for like a week or two. But over the course of time, but you consistently adding in these positive new habits, you're stacking your conditions. You're improving by 1% each day. Most importantly, you're building something that is sustainable. Because it's one thing to see people with these massive weight loss transformations of losing 30, 40 pounds, but how do they look 2 years down the road? Oftentimes, they have the weight back. And plus some extra interest, as I call it, extra weight added, because the way that they lost that weight was not really sustainable. And also the habits that they did to lose that weight wasn't something that they could do for long term. So they still didn't acquire the skill of living a healthy life, integrate it with everything else going on in their life.
So we start with sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny that you say that, because this morning I decided to watch a few videos on sleep and how to greatly enhance it, because, you know, I've told my wife, I want to wake up like at 4 a.m. Like I really legitimately do, but I don't.
Yeah, me neither.
When I wake up, I feel like, no, seriously, I feel like I'm hit by a bus, and then I just like turn the alarm off, and then I sleep for like 2 more hours.
Okay.
And so I started looking at some stuff on sleep, and I was like, oh my gosh, all these things affect sleep. So just the idea of going to bed early is great, but you know, now you have to look at your melatonin. Like I take melatonin. Actually, that's not a good thing to take.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it might help you fall asleep, but it doesn't actually help your actual sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all this different stuff. And so I really like how you're talking about starting at the beginning. So we start with sleep, then we hit breakfast. Do we go to lunch next, or do we go, okay, now this is how you're going to exercise? What would be the next step?
Generally, I look at nutrition, especially if you have a lot of weight to lose. The type of exercising that you're doing, people probably won't like me to say this, but it ain't really as important. Like it ain't really as important. The nutrition is first and foremost what's going to happen, because you burn very little calories lifting weights.
Yeah.
For example, so you can't out train a diet that's not that good. So that's why first and foremost I focus on the diet. And so the next thing is, yes, we will go to the next meal. So when I'm going to the next meal, I'm asking, okay, how many times ideally would you like to eat? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 5? What do you like? Do you need a snack? So that's totally up to you. So anytime I'm talking with someone, I'm asking questions on something that they would like, because I want them to feel like they have an input, and it's not me just being a dictator, but it's really a partnership. And secondly, if they feel like that they are in control and running it, their compliance rate is going to be much higher than me saying, hey, you have to not eat before noon. You're only going to eat between 12 and 8 o'clock at night, and blah, 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 blah. That stuff can work, but I mean, who likes to be told what to do? We're all just little kids here in just over adult sized bodies now. That's all. So to answer your question, we're going to the next meal. Probably it's going to be lunch for you. So what are we going to do about lunch? There's a lot of options you could do. You know, Chris Pratt could easily make that transformation on day one, because Chris Pratt has a team of people helping him. So what I mean by that is he has a meal delivery service. So he does a little acting in the morning, or he does a workout session. Then when he goes back to the trailer or the apartment, whichever one, he has this nice meal that's waiting for him to eat. He doesn't have to think about it. He just has to show up and eat it and then get on with his work. You can do that. We all can do that. There's a lot of great meal delivery services. So that's an option. If you want to outsource your nutrition to free up that time, to free up that energy, that's something to do. Maybe you don't want to do all 3 meals. Maybe you look at it as like, okay, breakfast I can control, but the middle of the day, it's unpredictable sometimes. I get to working. I don't like to stop and go get something to eat. So maybe I'm going to outsource just my lunch. And so now you have your lunch outsourced Monday through Friday. So now that second meal is already taken care of. So that's the next thing I would probably do.
At what point in time would you add exercise into the equation?
Well, exercise maybe. By exercising, I generally like to look into lifting weights. So 3 to 4 times a week of lifting weights. You pick those days. As far as the times, I'm not too picky with that. I will say, I will advise if you're having trouble sleeping already, I would not exercise too close to bedtime because that will probably keep you up. I have to do that with myself. And I have trackers and I've hooked up machines on myself and to confirm this. So some people need to do it first thing in the morning and it kind of helps them wake up. Some people like to do like a midday refresher. And some people like to do it at the end of their workday, right at the very end of their workday. That option's up to you. And once again, it's a partnership. And we see, hey, what's going to work for you? Maybe you won't know for certain. And so it's just something that you have to experiment and try. And you know it's right when it's easy to do. Yes, you won't feel like running. You won't feel like working out maybe. But as far as like the habit itself, there's not as much resistance with it. So that's when you know that this is at the right spot. And that comes with a little trial and error. I generally think for most people, do it before you start your workday or do it in the middle of your workday as like a halftime.
That's smart. How does our energy level play a role in our fitness and our overall health?
Yeah, your energy is everything. I think a lot of times we think about time management, but it's really about energy management. And the reason why I say energy management is because we think about energy, we think about it just in the form of physical energy. Well, what about mental energy? Yeah. What about emotional energy? And there's even a spiritual energy, and you can substitute spiritual for purpose. And there's energy from that. Because sometimes, and I've been in this situation where physically you feel great, but something just feels off. You just feel tired still. And I'm looking at my wearable. I had 8.5 hours of sleep. I had a lot of REM sleep, a lot of deep sleep. I'm feeling good, but I just feel tired still. And a lot of times it's this emotional energy. There's baggage, unresolved task throughout the day that I didn't take care of. I'm ruminating on different things. I'm procrastinating on things. All of these things are taking little percentage points off of our battery is that we go throughout the day. We're pretty much like an iPhone battery. Hopefully we start the day at 100% in green, but then all of these little things that we don't resolve or that we're stressing over, it's taking little energy points away. And before we know it, we're in the red. And so it's no surprise that we don't want to eat healthy or that we don't want to go exercise because all this other stuff has taken away a lot of our mental and emotional energy. So our decision-making is going to decrease as well.
How do we overcome, or do we just understand it? And because I don't know if there's a way to overcome losing energy other than the rest. Mm-hmm. And so I think what it comes down to is understanding. I think that's in part why Dr. Benjamin Hardy wrote the book Willpower Doesn't Work, is because willpower is depleting over time. Absolutely.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the coffin right there. And so, yeah, you're right. Energy is obviously restored when you're resting and recovering. And you can take little breaks during the day, even like a 2 to 3 minute break to just quickly meditate, to quickly do some breath work, to pray, to chant, whatever kind of will help you pause throughout the day and and just oh man, that's funny. And just recompose yourself after a stressful period. And mentioning that, the first step is self-awareness. So looking into what are these different things that are stressing me, and this is once again is going to be trial and error, or maybe doing a little journaling, or just being aware of little things that you're doing throughout the day that are maybe causing you stress. And then you're handling those things. And that's how you get a better hold of your energy, because you're bringing more structure. You're taking more control of your day.
Mm. We're touching on the subject of mental fitness. And so what role does our mental fitness play through all this? And how do we develop that as well?
I think it's the fundamental cornerstone. If you think about it, I always say that optimal health is an inside out job. A lot of times we look for something external to help the internal, but it's really the other way around. And this is what I mean by that. Everything is pretty much our attitudes, our beliefs about something. That's going to dictate our feelings about it, which then is going to dictate most likely our behaviors toward it, which then is going to dictate the outcomes that we're going to get. So if you're someone who says fitness is hard for me, I can't eat healthy because X and X and X, you're essentially creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. So your actions are going to back up that attitude and beliefs you have. So no matter how much, no matter what comes in front of you in terms of help or solutions for that, if you don't have that belief and attitude that will be open to that, it's going to be for nil. So that's the first area to look into, is your mental fitness, because that's going to dictate.
So wait, what you're saying, my mind's blown here, is that mental fitness is not something on the exterior that you can develop, but it's something that you have to develop on the interior. So what are some strategies that I could apply in my life to increase my mental fitness?
Mm-hmm. So the first one is, there's different categories of mental fitness. So I like to start with write down some of your beliefs. This is what I did. So I'm training for a marathon. And one reason I'm training for a marathon is because I'm not quote unquote the distance athlete. I'm a little heavier to be a quote unquote distance athlete. I've mainly stuck to like sprinting and stuff. But I wanted to challenge myself. And to do that, to build up my mental fitness for that, the only way to do that is to do the work. So I just had to do it. That's a terrible answer. But in this situation, I had to do that, even if it's just a little bit. And the reason why is because the work comes before the belief a lot of times. And by doing this and being consistent, I'm proving to myself that I can do it. And I'm also changing that belief that I had. Now, for another answer for someone is to develop like a scouting report. I have a scouting report on myself, all my habits and tendencies, all my beliefs. So a lot of people, I'm too busy to eat, or healthy eating is, what's a belief? What's a belief you have about nutrition?
Well, for me, it's a lack of planning. I don't take the time to plan. I don't understand it enough, or, it's going to take too much time. Those would be my.
Okay. So I would say planning to eat healthy takes too much time. So let's go with that belief. And then I would just keep going with why do you believe that? What's your reasoning for that?
Because it takes longer to make and to cook and to prepare for. It's more difficult than just doing something quick and easy, whether that's on the go or noodles with whatever sauce comes with it, mac cheese, hot dog, etc.
Okay. See, and then if we were doing a deep dive, I could say, is that true? Is that absolutely true? Is there no healthy eating options that is also convenient and can be quick as well?
No, that's not true. Of course there is.
Yeah. And so that will be the start right there. And then once you acknowledge that, then you could start going into, okay, if that's not true, then what else is not true? So you keep going through other beliefs. But then also you're going to find something to support that evidence of healthy eating doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to take a long time. So so let's find an example for that. So I can make a smoothie. I can make a protein smoothie. I can have a protein shake for a quick snack. Instead of just grabbing some chips, I can just have a nice protein shake instead. They're both convenient. One's going to give you more energy. One's going to help my fitness goals as well. So that's a little mini example right there. And there's a whole host of different options to do that. So one is consistently doing the habit, which is why I say start very small, because we need to feel like we're winning and we need momentum. So we want to make it as easy as possible, as frictionless as possible when you're just at ground zero. And then as you build up, by building more confidence in yourself, you're essentially developing your mental fitness.
Makes sense. So what have I not asked you yet that I should have?
I think, not sure if it's a question, but it's been coming on top of my head, is that what's the price that you're willing to pay for your health and fitness goals? And I should probably formulate this in a different question, but this is what I mean by that. At different levels with our fitness, with different goals, there's a certain price to pay. And I think, so maybe you could say, what's a common mistake? What's another common mistake that people forget to make on their fitness journey? Maybe that's it.
Well, I'm going to go back to the first one because that was making me think a little bit. The price that we look at, like, okay, well, I'm going to have to get up early. I'm going to have to build a routine. I'm going to have to eat less, be hungry more, plan better. That's the price that I'm going to have to pay for my fitness.
Okay.
But the alternative is also true. The alternative is I do none of that, and you continue to, stuff your face with Cheetos and Mickey D's and, whatever other inappropriate food. And it might not hurt you now, but the price you pay will be later.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, you're going to be paying a price. It's just one's now and hurtful and uncomfortable, and one's kicking the can down the road and by default.
Yeah. And I think there's a saying that I think it's, if you do what most are not, do what's hard right now so life can be easy later down the road. And then a lot of people do, I think,
live like no one else now so that you can live like no one else later.
Yeah. It's basically a version of that. And I think they changed the words. And so, but yeah, it's essentially that. And then once again, though, is it true that you're going to be hungry when you're trying to get healthy? So once again, that
would be a limiting belief.
Yeah, you can question that, because I would say no, because depending on what are you eating, where are you getting, what kind of nutritions, what kind of foods are you eating throughout your day? Because if you're eating something that has some vegetables in it, that's pretty filling as well. And there's a multitude of things that you can do to help with your hunger pangs. A lot of times people are just simply dehydrated. So that's one thing right there, is that you're dehydrated. And by being like 2% dehydrated, that's going to lower your cognitive abilities and a lot of your executive functioning skills as well. So it's really an inner game. And I'm glad you talked about mental fitness. I'm glad you brought that up, and we talked about that a lot, because it's really an inside out job. It's such an inside out job. And when I was like 16, I talked to an older gentleman who really changed my paradigm with health. And this is the same stuff that he was talking about. I didn't really appreciate it then because I was like, whatever, that's too simple of an answer. But, 15 so years later, I really understand that. So yes, we have the technology, the wearables and the blood testing, genetic testing, but all of that is nil because that's just really dressing and icing of the cake. And so if that foundation of that cake is not baked properly, it's just going to fall apart or cave in.
Man, that's good. Julian, I like to end the podcast with the same 3 questions for each guest. So the first one being, what brings you peace?
What brings me peace? I like that question. What brings me peace? I like the work. Can I say the work or is that too vague?
Yeah, expand on it.
Okay. What brings me peace at night that I can sleep well is that I can look at myself in the mirror and say, did I get 1% better? Regardless if I got the results that I wanted or not, did I at least do the work to put myself in the best position? So did I follow my plan that was given to me by my coach in my program? Did I do that? Yes. Did I read? So my key habits is to read, to write, and to exercise. Those are my 3 pillars. So did I do all those things? Yes. Did I at least serve one person, hopefully, or connect with at least one person today? If it's a yes, then that's all I can do. And so I'm generally pretty happy and at peace.
Good. And then the next question that I have is, in terms of negative self-talk, what are you currently struggling with?
Oh man, this is a funny question because it's a duality. Oh man, I think I struggle with, am I doing enough? Yeah. Am I doing enough? I think that's what I ask. Am I doing enough?
What's the best decision you've ever made?
Oh man, deciding not to go back to school. Yeah. Deciding not to go back to medical school and to add it with that, to decide to stick with it and not just go back after a year or 2 when things were moving along very slowly and I didn't have a lot of results to show still, but still keeping that belief.
That's awesome, man. Well, where can people connect with you or find you online?
Yeah. So the home base is theartoffitnessandlife.com and the podcast is Optimal Health for Busy Entrepreneurs.
Dude, thanks so much for coming on today. I really, really appreciate you jumping in here.
Thank you, man. This was kind of fun. I haven't really had a conversation like this that really just took a deep dive at ground zero and talked about the nitty gritties of starting with fitness. So this is really cool. I had to do a little thinking, man.
Good. Well, it's my pleasure, man. And would love to have you on in the future again.
Thank you, man. I enjoyed it. You're great at this.
Have a great day.
Thank you.